I mean, aside from it being a horror show, it is fascinating what's going on here because I would say there's really like 2 or 3 categories of people associated with this. One category, I think, is just there's a lot of concern trolling. There's another category where people who are like realizing maybe the Democrats are not putting their best foot forward in this instance. Like, I think the calculation has been up until the debate that the cost associated with jettisoning an incumbent, just generically speaking, an incumbent has some strength. And the cost associated with that in terms of like, is Kamala Harris up to the job? If she isn't, could you possibly bypass her? All of those questions, all of, would it be ugly at the convention? All of those questions outweighed the need, it seemed, to replace Biden. The debate basically not only reignited that debate, but changed the equation for people based upon the way that Biden presented himself. Now,
it changed our thoughts. I think that we were more dismissive of that Wall Street Journal report, maybe, or at least I was, about his cognition, because it's obviously a Murdoch paper. This changed the calculation.
Well, there's also the sourcing in there, too.
The sourcing was odd. And then we saw what happened.
Yeah. And and I think like then the question becomes, is this he's not capable of being president anymore, or is it he's not capable of being the strongest candidate that Democrats could field, even if you factor in all the potential downsides of replacing him? The messiness, a non-generic candidate suddenly becomes a target as opposed to a generic candidate. I mean, all of that. That's basically the calculation that's going on. And the reporting on this is basically that much of the Democratic, I don't know, you want to call it establishment or apparatus or down ticket, are freaking out. Some donors are freaking out. And the essentially the Biden coterie of advisors, which apparently is just like his family, and
a 185-year-old spring chicken advisor,
his former chief of staff, right? I think it was Kaufman.
Kaufman.
They're the only people he listens to. But here is Representative Jamie Raskin on MSNBC yesterday answering about this question.
Around the future of the Democratic Party with Joe Biden as the presidential candidate. You are a thinker. Our viewers respect you as such. Tell me your thinking.
Well, I mean, this is what a real political party looks like, and this is what a real political party does. But obviously, there was a big problem with Joe Biden's debate performance, and there's also just a tremendous reservoir of affection and love for Joe Biden in our party. And so this makes it a difficult situation for everybody, but there are very honest and serious and rigorous conversations taking place at every level of our party because it is a political party and we have differences of point of view. I mean, if you compare that to the non-existent dialogue and conversation that took place in the Republican Party after Donald Trump's criminal conviction on 34 counts, it's remarkable. And so we're having a serious conversation about what to do. One thing I can tell you is that regardless of what President Biden decides, our party is going to be unified, and our party also needs him at the very center of our deliberations and our campaign. And so whether he's the candidate or someone else is the candidate, he is going to be the keynote speaker at our convention. He will be the figure that we rally around to move forward and beat the forces of authoritarianism and reaction in the country.
All right, I want to point out something he said there at the end, that he will still be the central figure. There was a timeline of this. The Friday, Saturday after the debate, there was the New York Times editorial board that led the way and said he needs to step down. then the Wall Street Journal editorial board did, then the Chicago Tribune, then the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. He needs the state of Georgia, then the editor of the New Yorker. Then you have Jamie Raskin going on there. And you have Democrats speaking to NBC off the record or aides saying they've heard conversations with Pelosi, with Clyburn, with Hakeem Jeffries that have expressed private concerns about Biden's ability and his mental acumen at this point, or acuity. So they're all phrasing it in the exact same way. And it's buried in the Times articles. It's buried in these NBC articles that it will be Biden's decision if he can walk away from this and say that he's completed his job and he's done what he needed to do, which was defeat Donald Trump and have a historic presidency. And it's all this flowery language towards Biden. And you hear that echoed in Raskin, what he's saying there too. It's very carefully phrased, which is this ability to give Biden a triumphant out. And if there's a chance, it has to be phrased that way. And he says that there, he'll still be the central figure at the convention. There are Democratic down ballot candidates right now who are freaking out. And I'm freaking out, as is obvious, because this debate was set up by the Biden campaign in a way that was abnormal. It was the earliest debate that has ever happened between two general election candidates in late June.
He's not even technically the nominee.
Exactly.
That's what's weird about it.
They push for it because of the fact that Biden has been trailing in national polls for months at this point, has been trailing in swing state polls for months at this point. And they wanted to reset the narrative about his cognition. Well, goddamn, has the narrative been reset right now? And
the funny thing is that I don't know if it was about resetting the narrative of his cognition, because the State of the Union did that. The State of the Union did. I mean, they wanted
on the teleprompter.
They wanted, coming out of this debate, what was clear, and it's obvious. I mean, it's the most obvious. They wanted the story to be Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The whole point was that they felt that Donald Trump has escaped scrutiny, and that when the American public is reminded of Donald Trump, then they're going to start to have a problem with him. And had Joe Biden not been there, people would be talking about what a lunatic Donald Trump is. So the exact opposite of what they wanted coming out of that debate happened. Instead of the story being Donald Trump skates by saying some absolutely nutso crap. And Joe Biden's the story.
Exactly. And they picked this debate format. They picked the muting. They said that they picked the fact that the mics would be turned off when people would be talking back and forth.
The no fact
They
checking.
picked the no fact checking. They also picked no audience. This was as much of a home court, home field advantage as could have possibly ever happened. Ever. And he prepared with his team that they're now blaming in the press, classic move, for a week at Camp David heading up to this. This is not going to get better for Biden. And I'm freaking out because I'm terrified of Trump, right? This is like, if Biden's the nominee in the fall after the convention, I will be saying, everybody, doesn't matter if he's an inanimate object. We've got to elect Democrats to keep Trump out of office, especially after what we saw with this presidential immunity decision this morning. But this is the thing. From a political perspective for the Democrats who are terrified of taking risks, I implore them to listen to this really seriously right now. And I know that it's in Biden's hands, but they can exert pressure, I think, to some extent. The public hates both candidates. Don't you want to be the party that listens?
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.